everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the Mill Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Thank you so much for being with us. We're honored to have as our guest this week. She was here when she was a candidate. We had an opportunity to interview her, and that was over a year and a half ago. And now she is in the seat, and that is the district attorney for the Macon, Mill Georgia district. She'll tell me exactly. I know it's Macon, Warner Robins, and Fort Valley, not Warner Robins, but Fort Valley and some other places, none other than District Attorney Anita Howard. Thank you so much for being back with us.
Oh yes, thank you for the invitation. I'm just so glad, excited to be here. You welcomed me in with open arms when I was campaigning, and I am honored to be back here as the District Attorney of the Macon Judicial Circuit.
Well, congratulations. I have to admit that I wasn't able, I was out of the country when you were elected. I got my vote in before I left, but I was in Africa and wasn't here for your swearing in, so I wasn't able to personally congratulate you, so congratulations. And we're very proud of that you hold that position.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit, has it been everything you thought it would be? Had it been more or less? You were just on top of the world getting things done?
Well, we've made a lot of progress. There is a lot to be done. Shocking with the amount of things that we do have to do. Going in, I can tell you one of the things that most surprised me was the lack of attention that had been paid to the office as far as technology, as far as furniture, all those things that aid in the productivity of your staff had gone neglected. And so I don't know if you've seen that show Hoarders, but a lot of it, that's what it looked like. There was just large amounts of things that just didn't work, didn't function. And so that was one of the first things that we had to do, was we had to get all of the unnecessary clutter and surplus out. Because we wanted to boost the morale and the productivity in the office. So doing things like that were shocking, but those were some of the first things that we did once I took office in January.
Next week on the show, we're going to have Harry Young from the Tubman African American Museum, and of course now you are a historical figure. I know you didn't run to make history, you ran to make a difference.
That's right.
But it's not lost on us that you are the first African-American man or woman to hold this position. Am I right?
That's absolutely correct. And the first female, period, to hold that position. And as you said, and the first African-American to hold that position. And so what I know is that comes with a heightened level of scrutiny. And whereas typically people have been accustomed to seeing a white male hold that position, never questioned about anything, where we are then questioned, my administration, personally myself, about every little decision. And so, but that's what we saw with people like President Obama. So it was expected. Yeah. And we just know that everything that we do, as always, as I've done in my entire career, have to just make sure that all of your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. And making sure that we lead with excellence, because although I'm the first, I'm going to ensure I won't be the last, and I believe you do that by leading with excellence.
Very good point, and I agree with you. Being the first African-American mayor of this town,
right.
I've walked in those shoes in which you speak, and yes, the scrutiny was there and so forth and so on, but in spite of it,
that's right.
You have to keep moving because you're there for a purpose, not there for popularity, but to get the job done. But tell me, what are some of your main issues that you talked about the technology, but what are some of your other programs that you have implemented or plan on implementing in the office as it relates to crime and or how you operate your office in terms of prosecuting people and so forth?
Well, one of the things that we had to do was completely change the grand jury. The district attorney is the legal advisor to the grand jury. That's statutory. So that's by law. And when I say we had to change and revamp grand jury, I'm talking about physically where the grand jury was located. Once I took office in January, I realized that the grand jury did not have a permanent home. And so we had to see, which courtrooms with which judges would be available, or if the clerk had a room that wasn't available, and just trying to maneuver all of that was just really, it was not efficient, nor was it feasible. So one of the first things I did was to meet with our chief judge as well as the mayor about having a permanent home for the grand jury, and that is now housed at the district attorney's office, which is great. We were able to get a particular area in the office renovated, so that we, won't have to figure out where the grand jury is going to meet. We know, they know where to report to, the bailiffs know where to report to, and things of that nature. Also, to revamp the grand jury, the process was that everybody, the officers that have to testify at grand jury, would all be subpoenaed at one time. And we already know that we have a shortage of law enforcement officers here in the Macon Judicial Circuit, specifically a critical shortage with the Bibb County Sheriff's Office. And just having all of those officers there in our office, number one, that wasn't efficient, but it's also not prioritizing public safety. So we revamped that process as well, and so we're actually able to schedule officers at certain times based on certain blocks. And I will tell you, we have gotten a lot of positive feedback from the officers, because they're not having to come in, say, at 9 and just wait and stay there until 12 or 2 o'clock. They're able to come in. There's always a little period of waiting, but typically an officer is not there longer than 30 minutes. We try to get them in and out within about 15 minutes. So the process works quite smoothly, and it's more efficient, and we're able to actually present more cases to the grand jury. We have decreased the number of days the grand jury meets, which the grand jurors appreciate that. Typically, the grand jury was meeting every week on that Tuesday. Well, now they meet maybe twice a month, but they're, instead of, say, starting at 10 and going until about 1 or 2, we're having full days. So they appreciate that, because they're able to come in and hear all of the cases, 2 days a month instead of 4 days. And it's also a cost savings to the county. So we have completely revamped the grand jury process. And it doesn't look anything like it looked before in the prior administration. So that was very important to do.
You mentioned the shortage of officers. Now, this Bibb County, you have what, Crawford County?
I have Crawford, I have Bibb, Peach, and Crawford.
Bibb,
Yes.
Peach, and Crawford. The relationship between the DA and the police community is critical in order to build a case, make a case. So how has that impacted what you do, these shortages, especially in Bibb County? How has it impacted how we fight, not only how we fight crime, but how you operate in your office?
Oh, the number one position that I asked for the county commissioners was investigators, because we are getting cases that still need a extensive amount of investigation to be done on the case. Number one, in order to present to the grand jury, but then number two, in order to have a successful prosecution and a successful disposition of a case, whether that be a trial or if cases are resolved via a plea negotiation. So the number one position that I asked for was investigators, and that's my most needed position for several reasons in my office. Further investigations, but they're listening to jail calls, reviewing body cams, also locating witnesses. We know there was already existing backlog prior to me taking office, and then and prior to COVID compounded that backlog. Well, we know that people move on with their life, and so we're looking for witnesses in cases, critical witnesses. A lot of times I'll witness folks who have, the cases are 2, 3, 4 years old. So my investigators are having to go out and find these folks, and sometimes we have to force them to come in and testify. That happened recently, a few weeks ago, in a murder trial that we had. There was a critical witness who we served her with a subpoena. She said she was not going to come. She didn't come. I had to ask the judge for a material witness warrant. Two of my investigators had to go to her house and arrest her to come in to testify. So those are some of the things that my investigators, have to do. But if we don't do that, then we don't attain justice. And I know that the Bibb County Sheriff's Office, as I said, I know they have a critical shortage, but we are working with them, and we've met with them to have conversation. I tell them all the time, I don't want this to be a monologue, but a dialogue about how can we help. How can the DA's office also help you? We understand that you're short, but we also understand that we both have the same goal, so which is public safety. So what can we do together? And the sheriff and I have developed a plan where we review all cases that are involving a death in a short period of time after the death or either the arrest occurs. And I've been in lots of those meetings, and it has gone very, very smoothly. The investigators are contacting either myself or someone with my leadership team, as far as a person who's in leadership, assistant district attorney, contacting them to get any guidance that they may need, because we know that the better case that we have on the front end, the more likelihood that we're going to be able to attain justice, as far as a disposition on the back end. So we have a very good working relationship with law enforcement, and we are working with them, and they are working with us. And we know that I think you've probably seen this on the news. I've heard they call it the Great Resignation. And I think we're dealing with this not only here with law enforcement, we're just dealing with this on a state and national level. Just shortages as far as being able to hire folks. So we're making the best out of a situation that's not so favorable.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned you asked for a past tense. Were you granted did you get your ask? You say you asked for more investigators from the county to fund them. Were you granted those funds?
We were granted some funds, but not all of them. We asked for multiple investigator positions. We were given a full-time investigator position, as well as we were given a supplement for one of my existing investigators to have an assistant chief investigator. But no, we asked for additional investigators. It is my plan to ask for additional investigators again the next budget cycle. Also, I know that they have the federal funds that have been allotted. I know the governor recently did a press conference about that, and I've asked, we go through the chief judge to submit one proposal to AOC, and I've asked for 4 additional investigators. And I've talked with our chief judge, and he is going to put that in his proposal. I have explained to him why we need additional investigators at the DA's office. In fact, him and I had a conversation before I came here today, and I'll tell you one thing that he said was different, because he used to be the district attorney. And one thing that he said was different is, when he was the district attorney, law enforcement, local law enforcement, served a lot of their subpoenas, not just for their law enforcement folks, but for lay witnesses. Well, that is no longer the case. My investigators, the DA investigators, are responsible for serving all subpoenas of lay witnesses. And so that was a difference that he did not even know until today existed, and we were talking about the need. And so if you're talking about using these funds to address the backlog to increase the number of trial weeks, someone's got to serve the subpoenas to get those folks there. Yeah. And my district attorney investigators are responsible for that. So that's why there's a great need for increased funding when it comes to district attorney investigators.
Yeah, and I don't want to leave that, because if we have an administration that says they are committed to crime, and you're the person in charge, you work for us, we elected you, and you say, I need this in order to serve this community, and you're not granted that, that puts you in a position that you can't do your job the way you feel that you should be doing.
It does, and
Well, it hinders you somewhat. You
Right,
still get the job done, but it hinders
right.
you.
We're going to get the job done, but that does mean that some of my investigators, which most of my investigators are, just like everyone else, they are overworked. They are working, in the evenings, nights. They are dedicated to the job that they do. So I have wonderful investigators, but yes, there is a need there for more. I asked for more. I was thankful for what I was able to get, but I'll ask for more again this time.
But you shouldn't. Yeah, I've been.
I get what
you
you're saying.
I've,
Yes,
I've
sir.
been in politics. I haven't served as mayor for 2 terms, and people have to come ask. But there are certain things that we just have to fund.
That's
and
right.
if we don't, then the community will come to me even and say, we need this, and you got to make sure this happens. So I think that we have a responsibility. If we know what your needs are, the people, to have to say, because we're all committed to eliminating, reducing, probably never eliminate, but reducing crime.
That's right.
And if we are hindering you or tying your hands by not giving you the resources, the tools that you need to do that, then we all should be speaking out against it.
All right.
And that's my point. That's
Yes, sir.
that's why I asked that. Now, I'm glad you mentioned that you have this good relationship with the police, because in the last 2 years, as you know, police and community has been at odds with one another. What happened in Brunswick, there was a DA that just turned their heads the other way. But even though you say you support the police, so did I. And when I was the mayor, I supported them 100%, but I also held them accountable. So you will hold, if a police officer would do something egregious that he or she shouldn't do, you wouldn't hesitate to bring that police officer to justice.
Oh, absolutely. Would not hesitate. No. Prosecuting crime is my, that's my job. And no one is above the law. And I will prosecute without fear or favor. Currently now, and I can't talk too much about it, as you know, because it's a pending case, but we have a pending case in one of my counties in Crawford County, where an officer was charged for some things that occurred during an arrest, things that, I believe, and after the GBI investigation and their review of the file with me, criminal activity. We will be presenting that to the grand jury, in the near future. But that, even for the case to get to the stage where it's at now, where he was actually charged, with a crime, that had to be reviewed by my office, and we had to be on board to say this is what we believe based off the evidence that we see, and so absolutely no one is above the law, regardless of your title or anything like that. But it is important to have a good working relationship with law enforcement. Now, we're not going to always agree. And we've had time, there have been occasions where we have not always agreed, but we have continued to have the communication, the dialogue necessary to serve this community, and that's what it's all about.
Well, in other words, you are the DA.
That's right. Yes, sir. At the end of the day, right, exactly.
Now, speaking about we've seen an uptick in crime, not just in Mason-and-Bibb County. Warren Robins yesterday, not yesterday, but recently had a shooting, robbery, and so forth. So do you have any initiatives yourself in crime prevention, or rather just prosecuting? Are you putting forth any initiatives that you want to help in conjunction with law enforcement and everyone else to reduce crime in the first place?
Oh, yes, sir, absolutely. So I'm very proud of a few of the initiatives that we have launched. One was the Junior Justice League. It's an initiative that focused on middle school age children, a summer program. This year's theme was Keep Swinging in honor of Hank Aaron. Because of COVID, it was an abbreviated version of a much bigger vision, but we were able to have our orientation via Zoom. Then we had a day at the courthouse where the children got to learn about all of the actors in the criminal justice system in a positive manner. And then we culminated that Junior Justice League summer program at the Braves game. It was on Hank Aaron Day. And I know they're coming in again, coming up in a few weeks. They're coming in to have their Christmas event with us, and we'll be taking them to the Nutcracker, because what I know is it's hard to be what you don't see. And so it's important for our youth to have exposure to different things, so they can see different possibilities for success in their future. So we're very proud of that initiative. Starting January of 2022, we will be launching our RISE initiative, Restoring Inspiration by Success in Education. The community is excited about it. I'm excited about it. It is an initiative that focuses on youth who have adverse childhood experiences. And there's data that shows that crime is more prevalent in communities where you have young folks who are dealing with untreated trauma or adverse childhood experiences. And so we can identify those youth at a much earlier age. Then we're able to offer the counseling and the mentorship and the services that they need to mitigate the harm caused by these adverse childhood experiences. You can't erase the harm. I wish I could. If I had a magic wand to kind of say, okay, you didn't experience this, but it doesn't work that way. But what we do know is we can mitigate the detrimental effects of the harm. And if we can do that, I know that we can turn our communities around and have safe communities. I tell people all the time, the goal or the priority of the district attorney should not be just prosecution. My priority is public safety, and that is achieved, I believe, in many ways. You've never been able to, or no one has ever been able to prosecute their way to a safer community. If people think that will work, they can just look at history, whether it's here in the Macon Judicial Circuit or in some other circuit in the state or nationwide. You've got to do more than prosecution. So you're absolutely correct that preventive measures are so important. And we have, since day one, had taken a multifaceted approach to dealing with making our community safer. We didn't get here overnight, and so we know it's going to take some time, but we are doing the work in a multifaceted way because we are in a crisis. I think here recently we just hit our number of 50 murders. That's astounding. But you've got
for a city of our size, it is.
Right, it's astounding. And
I mean, when I was the mayor, we had 23, and I thought, my God, I thought we were going crazy, the highest. So basically, what I hear you saying that the children from these communities committing crime, most of them are young people.
That's right.
So the question should be not what's wrong with you, but what has happened to you.
What happened?
What happened?
And we've got to stop seeing folks as fouls and see them as people. Right? Even when, now I don't shy away from prosecution. We have prioritized, and we have been very successful during my administration to prosecute those who have committed the most violent and heinous crimes in our community. We've been very successful with that. But like for instance, the first case that we tried, murder case here in Bibb County, the defendant and the victim both had young black male children. They are both victims of this senseless, heinous, violent act. You have a victim who is obviously deceased, and you have a defendant who was found guilty at trial and sentenced by the judge to life without the possibility of parole. But you have two broken young black men, young black boys, right, and two families, right. And so, typically what we have done as the DA's office, people are a victim as long as we're prosecuting the case and they're tied to a case number, but then after that we're done. And nobody helps to put the pieces together, right? You can put the pieces together and, it's never going to look like a broken vase. It's never going to look like the vase before it was broken, but you can at least put it together so you can see that, okay, it was a vase. It may have some glue in the cracks, right?
But it will hold water.
But you can kind of still see, right? And so I believe it's our job to at least try to put it back together in a sense that we can at least, offer the community support that both of those young men need, not just, what we typically think as the victim, but the defendant's son is also a victim. Yeah. And so we've been intentional with my administration about expanding the definition of what it means to be a victim and being a victim beyond the case. So even when the case is closed, then we can those children can now be a part of the Junior Justice League, or those children can now be a part of the RISE initiative. So that's us trying to put the pieces back together as best we can.
In case you're just joining us, we're speaking with Ms. Anita Howard, who is the DA in her end of her first year as the district attorney for Bibb County, and has Peach County and Crawford County under her jurisdiction as well. You mentioned earlier about the great resignation. Mm-hmm. Well, it's been in the news that you've had a lot of people to leave to resign for whatever reason, and of course the news would want to make people believe whatever they want to believe. So now we'll ask you, now that you're here, I want to talk about what the street committee says and what some news organization says. How do you address the amount of people leaving your office? Are they moving on to bigger or better things, or what?
I want to address it two ways. First, we did not have the opportunity for a proper transition with the prior administration. I believe for there to be a appropriate and peaceful and productive, transfer of power, that the person who is leaving must make sure that the door is open. So the door was not open. So, and I did not want to come in and do a mass firing of individuals. We went in, since we didn't have that advance, we went in to assess things. And I'll say the second thing is, I did bring some individuals back that were here before. And what I realized, nothing wrong with any of the individuals that I brought back, or nothing wrong with any of the individuals that were kind of left over from the prior administration. But what I realized is that when I said changing the face of justice, it wasn't just about changing the face at the top. And what I was trying to do was trying to revive something, and what I needed to do was rebuild, and there's a difference. And so what we are doing now is rebuilding, and it has to look different because the vision is so different. I can't just take what was there or what once was there and try to fit it into this new mold, because good people, it just doesn't fit. And so instead of reviving, we have been focused on rebuilding, and we are in a wonderful place right now.
And that's what any good leader does. They listen, they learn, and they lead. And when you're in charge, take charge, and you're in charge.
Yes,
and
sir.
We want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. We have holidays coming up just around the corner. I want to wish you and your family and your entire staff a very happy holiday season, and all the success and much success for you, because if you're successful, we're all successful with crime and reduction of crime in our county. So if you'd like to wish the people a happy holiday season.
I would. So I'm Anita Howard, District Attorney for the Macon Judicial Circuit, Bibb, Crawford, and Peach Counties. Honored to serve you as your District Attorney. And I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, just wishing goodwill and peace for everyone. And I know we've had a very tough and different year with dealing with the pandemic, but I am hopeful and prayerful that 2022 we're going to see better and brighter days.
Well, thank you very much, and wish you and your family a very happy holiday season and much success, as I said, down the road. We've been speaking with Miss Anita Howard, who is a district attorney for Bibb County, and she has Houston, I want to say Houston, but she has Peach and Crawford County in her jurisdiction as well, and we all want to support her, because so goes the DA in this town in terms of prosecuting crime, getting criminals away. So goes all the rest of us, and we all want to be supportive of her efforts. Until next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Goodbye.